And the question for this week is, what is the best way to deal with oral sex questions? And welcome back to Sitting in a Car. I'm Sarah Sproul, and I sit in a car each week with you answering a question to help you raise your confident and caring young person who respects themselves and the people around them. Okay, so oral sex. It's enough really to make you quake in your boots as a parent, right? Because little did we think when we were bringing home our tiny baby from wherever it was born that first day or that first week that we would be dealing with questions to do with all the nitty-gritty parts of life and being intimate with other people's bodies and our own bodies. So let's get going. I remember when one of my children, they would have been maybe about 8, and we were reading the bedtime story, and this particular night this person said to me, Mum, what's oral sex? And I was like, well, sex is about doing things that feel nice for our body and for another person's body. And so oral sex is about doing things that feel nice with our mouth. And the child goes like, with our mouth? I said, yes. And our private parts? And I was like, yes. And there was this sort of silence. And then the child says, have you done that? And I said, yes. And they said, how many times? And I was like, in that moment, I realized that I didn't want to answer any more questions. So the first point with this question is to be aware that you don't have to say everything. You need to have a conversation that is within your level of comfort. So it could be that you might need a little bit of time to think about the answer, in which case you say, that's a really great question. I will come back to you with the answer. I want to make sure I get it right. Because that's probably the truth, right? Most of the time when we're feeling anxious or worried about a question or answering a question, we might just be concerned that we're not going to get it quite right. The second point I'd like to make is this. A lot of the research around oral sex practices shows an inequality between the genders. So if we're just thinking about the two main genders, for example, people who have a penis, people who have a vulva or a vagina, oftentimes, people with a vagina or a vulva are more likely to give oral sex than people with a penis. And that just seems to be across the board one of those inequalities. Now, who knows why that is? It could be something to do with the fact that people with a penis sort of maybe expect that practice, or maybe people with a penis feel more comfortable with their genitals than people with a vulva. But the point is that it points to sort of an inequality. And in the sexuality research, we know that people with a penis, if they're having some sort of physical intimate experience with people with a vagina or a vulva, then they are more likely to have an orgasm than the people with the vagina and a vulva. That doesn't sound very equal to me. So in this, when we're talking about oral sex to our child, if they've asked us a question, we need to make sure that we answer it without assuming that it's just something that a person with a penis will have or experience, and that people only do oral sex to a penis, because obviously that's not true, right? So if you're answering the question, you can be quite broad and say, well, oral sex is when people use their mouths to feel good when they're with someone else's body. You can leave it at that. And if the child says, well, like, what do they do with their mouths? You can say something like, well, you know how people who care about each other kiss each other? Well, we can kiss each other not just on our mouth, but on other parts of our body, like neck and hand, for example. And oral sex is really when someone might kiss someone else's private parts. But it's for older people. Children don't do that, right? So you need to add in that children don't do that thing, because it's not an age-appropriate thing for a child to do, obviously. We need to talk about consent and how some people, like to have their genitals kissed or touched with someone else's mouth, and other people don't. It's one of those things that not everyone likes. Not everyone likes to have it done to them, and not everyone likes to do it to someone else. That's really important. We also need to talk about the fact that, when children become teenagers, oftentimes there's a lot of pressure to do something like oral sex. And again, we know that not everyone likes to do it, and we don't have to do it just because the people around us are doing it. The final thing to say is this is an opportunity to talk about how sex is different for different people. So a lot of people in the world will think that sex is a penis in a vagina, but of course that's not necessarily the case for everyone. We might be having sex with someone that doesn't have a penis or doesn't have a vagina, or that way we might be doing something else that we call sex, and that is very valid. And the reason why a parent might be interested in having a conversation like that is because we don't know what sort of child we're raising, right? We don't know what their interests are going to be. We can also say that some people are never interested in oral sex. We can say that some people, that's the only sex they ever have, and that's what they like the best. And it's really important just to reassure our child that they will never have to do anything they don't want to do. As they grow up, they will learn what their body likes, and that will be a gradual process. This is not something that when they turn a particular age that then they have to do all the things. Absolutely not. And we can also reassure them that they may never ever want to do anything sexual, and that will be awesome as well. And that's Sitting in a Car for another week, where I've answered a question to help you raise your confident and caring young person who respects themselves and the people around them. Bye for now.